Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed viewers, subscribers, and followers of Ascent Radio, and welcome to another exciting edition of Let's Talk with Asset Litigation. I remain your host, Barrister David Njoko Ono, and today I'll be taking on a ride, the ride on the world of litigation, the world of legal studies, and as we always say here, welcome to classroom. Today we'll be discussing a very important and interesting topic, one that is on the front burner of the lips of every Nigerian, especially those who are politically inclined. We're talking about the rearrest of Godwin Emefiele and the powers of the Department of State Security Services. Do you hear that? The rearrest of Godwin Emefiele and the powers of the operatives of Department of State Security Services. Remember, on the 25th of July 2023, when operatives of the DSS decided to bring Mr. Godwin Emefiele, the suspended governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, for trial before the Federal High Court sitting in Ikoyi before Justice Nicholas Webo. It was reported that afterwards the court granted Mr. Godwin Emefiele bail in the sum of 20 million naira and a surety with like sum. But upon him leaving the court premises, he was rearrested by members of the Department of State Security Services, and it has raised so much legal questions as to whether the police, the members of the DSS or operatives of the DSS has the powers to rearrest him the way they did. But we are now raising this question: do they even have the powers to arrest him in the first place? Is arresting a suspect, detaining a suspect, prosecuting a suspect part of the primary responsibilities and statutory functions of the Department of State Security Services? If you want to know, you just have to stay tuned and wait till the end so that you get all these juicy and interesting exposures with respect to what the law provides as the powers of the Department of State Security Services. Now, the DSS, as we call them, is likened to the CIA in the United States of America. Now, the DSS is a creation of law, and the law that creates this DSS is the National Security Agencies Act of 1986, which was initially the National Agency Security Decree 19 of 1986 that was promulgated by the then military president of Nigeria, General Babangida. Now, what this provides is that, or what this act provides, is that it provides for an elite force, an elite intelligence gathering force, to be known as the Department of State Security Service, otherwise known as State Security Service, SSS or DSS, any which you prefer to call them. Now, their roles are primarily three. Number one is the detection and prevention of crimes that has internal security dimension. Now, number two is the detection of crimes that are non-military related. And number three is any other function that the National Assembly assigns to it or that the President assigns to it. Now, in furtherance to this, the President now made a presidential proclamation number 1, instrument of the Department of State Security Services in 1991 by the then President Olusegun Obasanjo, which now furthered and expounded the powers of the DSS to include the counter-terrorism and counter-insurgencies fight, and also the protection of critical state infrastructure, and also the protection of specific principal political office holders in the country, which includes the president, the vice president, the governor, the deputy governors, senate president, deputy senate president, the speakers of both House of Representatives and the House of Assembly, and their deputies. Now, what this means is that the powers of the DSS can only be found in the National Security Agencies Act of 1986, and then the presidential proclamation on the instrument number 1 of the Department of State Security Services to 1999. And on all this, it provides for there is no provision for the powers of the DSS to arrest, to detain, and to prosecute any person in Nigeria. And this is not far-fetched. Just as we said, it is likened to the CIA in America. Why is this so? It's because countries like Nigeria, United States of America, UK, that is United Kingdom, they provide for elite agencies just like the DSS, which is the primary purpose is intelligence gathering. What is the purpose of intelligence gathering? It's so as to detect crimes that has the capacity to hobble or to cripple the political structure and economic stability of a nation and nip it on the bud. So it's an agency that is preventive of insecurity issues other than the ones that are proactive or reactive rather of insecurity issues. So the DSS, just like the CIA, is supposed to prevent crimes by way of intelligence gathering. You ensure that you become discreet. By that we mean you're not easily known. That is what the DSS is meant for. The DSS is not supposed to be easily known, and that is why they are not supposed to go out on their uniforms and all that. They should be like every other citizen. They may be in holding a shop just beside you at your marketplace. They may be even a bus driver or a bus conductor. They can be a classroom teacher. They can be at a bank. They can be any sector, anywhere at all, just to mingle with the people, and so just so as to ensure that they get information that will aid them in preventing a crime that has internal security dimension or has the capacity to destabilize the political stability of Nigeria and then the economic stability of Nigeria also. And as such, when the DSS begin to move away from this primary responsibility as an intelligence gathering agency to become a law enforcement agency, it's totally working against its powers or acting beyond its power, that is acting ultra-virus. Now then you may ask the question, what is the difference between an intelligence gathering agency and a law enforcement agency? Now an intelligence gathering agency, as we said, is an elite agency that provides information as to the prevention that will lead to the prevention of crime. Why a law enforcement agency is one that swings into action when a crime has been committed, so as to stop the further occurrence or the occurrence of such crime, and then to arrest or apprehend the offenders. So while we have the DSS as the intelligence gathering agency, we have the Nigerian Police Force as the law enforcement agency. So when a crime has been said to have been committed, it is not the duty of the DSS to wade into it and then begin to make arrests. No, it is the duty of the Nigerian Police Force, which is a law enforcement agency, to do that job. And that is why we're liking the DSS to the CIA and then the police force to the FBI in the US, with the FBI, which is the Federal Investigative Bureau, that is the federal police in the United States. And so when we see situations where the DSS begin to dabble into issues that are not threats to internal security, we begin to doubt if actually the operators of the DSS knows their onus, knows their modus operandi, and knows the law that establishes them and the scope of their powers to exercise such laws. Now let's go into the nitty-gritty of our discussion today, which is the rearrest of Godwin Emefiele. Now, we have established that ab initio, the operatives of the Department of State Security Services don't have the powers to make arrests, detain, or even persecute. Now, when they arrest, what does the law provide? The law provides that when they, in the course of trying to prevent crime, they apprehend would-be offenders of the law. They are only allowed to detain them for a period of more than 24 hours, after which they hand them over to the Nigerian police, whose responsibility will now be to take them into detention and then prosecute them before a court. By prosecuting them, we mean bringing them before a court to be arraigned and then for them to be tried before a court of competent jurisdiction. So that is the duty of the Nigerian Police Force and not that of the operatives of the Department of State Security Service. So if they now decide to arrest Godwin Emefiele, just as they did, do they have the right to rearrest him after the court proceeding? Now, we have to put this into context. It's it's not that the security agencies don't have the power to rearrest a suspect. Even if the suspect has been acquitted of a crime, you can rearrest a suspect for a different crime altogether, as long as it's not the same crime. Because if you are rearresting him on the same crime that he has been acquitted, or he has been granted bail, or he has been discharged, that will amount to double jeopardy. So the law prevents or abhors or forbids such attitude by security agencies, because that will amount to power malfeasance or the abuse of power or of offices. And as such, the DSS haven't arrested Mr. Godwin Emefiele for a crime that ordinarily is only the establishment or the institution that has the powers to prosecute him is the police and not the DSS itself. So having arrested him, what should they have done? They should have handed him over to the Nigerian police force for the purpose of prosecuting. Because if you don't have the powers to arrest, if you don't have the powers to detain, you cannot have the powers to prosecute. And if they decide to prosecute, they cannot prosecute on their own. They can only prosecute through the office of the Attorney General of the Federation, which is the chief law officer of the Federation, that has the powers, the omnibus powers, to prosecute any suspect in Nigeria. Now, having established it, we have to equally establish that the roles and functions of the Department of State Security Service, as outlined under Section 2, Sub 3 of the National Security Agencies Act, is such that they cannot go beyond such powers. Because going beyond such powers will amount to them acting beyond the statutory powers provided under our laws, and that is what leads to usually abuse of office. Because the operatives of the DSS have been accused several times of being high-handed with Nigerians, where you will see them beginning to dabble into things that has to do with debt recovery, that has to do with corrupt practices, that has to do with domestic issues, that has to do with examination malpractice, just as we heard sometime 2 months ago when the issue of Ejikeme Imesoma and the JAMB forgery occurred. And then we heard that the DSS swung into action to begin to interrogate the young lady and her family members. That is not the job of the DSS. Their job is discreet. Their job is an elite one. Their job is meant for intelligence gathering. And the essence of this broadcast is so as to educate the public, and as much educate the operatives and those in the helm of affairs of the Department of State Security Service to go back to the drawing board and then look at the statute establishing them, the relevant status, the primary status, and then the proclamation, presidential proclamation, and then work within the ambits of the law to ensure that we attain a safe society where the rule of law and not the rule of force prevail. Having established this, please, as usual, we'll always want to get your comments, suggestions, and opinion on our topic, especially this topic on the arrest of Godwin Emefiele and the powers of the DSS. So please leave a comment at the comment section of whatever streaming platform you're listening to us, and as usual, we will always give you the quickest of response. If you want to read more on this very topic, the article on this very topic is already published on our website, www.lawaccent.com. Just go there, click on the resource icon, and you will see the article for you to read on. As we always say here in Accent Litigation, please keep the hope alive and keep praying for a better Nigeria. Until we come again your way next week, shalom and God bless you.